I never thought Thanksgiving would end like this, I whispered to myself as the papers slid across the table. My father-in-law's cold hand lingered on the envelope as my husband sat frozen beside me, his eyes unable to meet mine. The warmth of the holiday dinner, the laughter and chatter, seemed to vanish in an instant. The sharp rustle of the divorce papers was deafening in my ears. I couldn't breathe. My father-in-law's voice cut through the silence. It's time for your marriage to end. This is for the best. My world felt like it was collapsing in that moment. How could this be happening? I had never seen this coming. But as I glanced around the table, all I saw were the stunned faces of my family, each one of them in disbelief. The weight of the divorce papers in front of me felt like a lifetime of betrayal. But just when I thought I couldn't take it anymore, my best friend, who had been sitting quietly beside me, reached into her bag and pulled out an envelope. Her eyes met mine for a brief second, and I could see the hesitation in them. She didn't have to say anything. I could already feel the significance of that envelope. My mind raced. What was inside it? What was she hiding? I opened the envelope slowly, every heartbeat louder than the last, and pulled out the contents. My fingers shook as I unfolded the paper inside. It wasn't just about the divorce papers. The truth was worse than I could have ever imagined. The pieces of the puzzle were falling into place, and it was all coming undone. My marriage, my family, everything I thought I knew was now in question. This wasn't just a betrayal. It was a plot that went deeper than I could have imagined. I had to find out the truth. No matter what it cost me, I couldn't stay in the dark anymore. The envelope contained everything I needed to know to take the next step, but the question was, could I trust my best friend? Or had I been betrayed by her too? The moment I held the envelope in my hands, everything seemed to slow down. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. My mind raced as I read the contents, and the pieces of the puzzle started to fall into place. This wasn't just about the divorce. It was about something much bigger. My best friend had known about this plan all along, and I had no idea. How long had she been hiding this from me? The words on the page made my stomach churn. It was a letter, one that exposed a web of lies and manipulation. My best friend had been involved in a plot to tear my marriage apart from the start. She had been feeding information to my father-in-law, even helping him with his plans to get me and my husband to divorce. I felt betrayed by the one person I had trusted the most. The anger surged within me, but so did the confusion. Why would she do this? We had been friends for years, shared everything, and yet here she was, playing a role in ruining my life. I looked up from the letter, my hands shaking. My best friend's face flashed in my mind. Had she ever truly cared about me? Or was I just a pawn in a game I didn't even know I was playing? I needed answers. I couldn't let this go. The divorce was just the surface. There was something deeper here, something I wasn't seeing. I couldn't trust anyone now. Not my husband, not my father-in-law, and certainly not my best friend. But as I sat there, holding the letter in my hands, I realized that if I didn't act, everything I had worked for would be destroyed. I had to confront her, confront everyone involved, and uncover the truth behind the lies. But what would I find? Was there anyone left I could trust? The questions kept spinning in my mind as I prepared to take the next step. The truth was out there, and I was determined to find it, no matter how painful it would be. The next morning, I knew I couldn't waste any more time. I had to face my best friend and confront her about the envelope. The betrayal was still fresh, the sting in my chest sharp as ever. I thought about all the years we had spent together, the late-night talks, the secrets we shared. How had it come to this? I grabbed my phone and dialed her number, my fingers trembling as I waited for her to pick up. The line rang for what felt like an eternity, and when she finally answered, her voice was soft, almost hesitant. "Hey, what's going on?" she asked, as if nothing had happened. I could feel the anger rising in my chest, but I kept my voice steady. "We need to talk," I said, my tone sharp. "About the envelope you gave me. About everything." There was a long pause on the other end, and I could almost hear her heart racing. "I didn't want to hurt you," she said quietly. I thought I was doing the right thing." "The right thing?" I repeated, disbelief in my voice. "You've been feeding my father-in-law information about my marriage. You've been part of this plan to destroy everything I've worked for, and you're telling me you thought it was the right thing." My voice broke, and I had to swallow back the tears that threatened to come. She was silent for a moment, and then I heard a soft sigh. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't know what else to do. Your marriage, it wasn't what I thought it was." The words hit me like a punch. She was telling me that she knew something about my marriage that I didn't. She had been watching from the sidelines, and instead of helping me, she had been involved in tearing everything apart. "You knew about this the whole time?" I asked, my voice rising with anger. "You knew and didn't tell me?" She didn't respond right away, and when she did, it was barely above a whisper. "I didn't want to see you hurt. I didn't want to be the one to say it, but it was obvious. Your husband, he's not who you think he is." The words stunned me into silence. What was she talking about? Was she saying my husband was involved in this? I couldn't process it. Everything I had believed, everything I thought I knew, was suddenly in question. "What do you mean? What are you talking about?" I asked, my voice barely audible. She hesitated, and then spoke again, this time with more conviction. "He's been keeping secrets from you. I saw him with someone else. I saw him with another woman." My heart stopped. The world around me seemed to tilt, and I felt dizzy, like I might collapse. My best friend had just dropped the bombshell that shattered everything. My husband had been unfaithful. My world was falling apart, and I had no idea where to go from here. The truth was finally out, but it only led to more questions. What was I supposed to do now? The conversation with my best friend left me reeling, but I knew I had to confront my husband. The next few hours were a blur of nervous energy as I gathered the strength to face him. I had never felt so betrayed, and yet I knew I couldn't move forward without the truth. I couldn't keep living in the dark, pretending everything was fine when it was falling apart. My mind kept replaying the conversation with my best friend, her words echoing in my head. Asterisk, I saw him with someone else. Asterisk, I kept asking myself why she hadn't told me sooner, why she hadn't warned me. But there was no time for questions anymore. I had to act. When my husband finally walked through the door, I could feel the tension in the air. He looked at me, and I saw the faintest flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. It was a look I hadn't seen before, and it sent a chill down my spine. "We need to talk," I said, my voice calm but steady. He frowned, looking at me with confusion. "What's going on?" he asked, but I could tell he knew something was off. I took a deep breath, gathering my courage, and then I said the words I never thought I'd have to say. "I know about her." The color drained from his face, and for a moment, he was speechless. His eyes darted around, as if searching for an escape, but there was no way out now. "What are you talking about?" he asked, his voice shaky. I held up the envelope, the one my best friend had given me. "I know you've been seeing someone else." She told me everything. His face twisted with panic, but I could see the guilt in his eyes, the shame he couldn't hide. "It's not what you think," he stammered, but I wasn't listening anymore. I had heard enough. The truth was out, and I wasn't going to let him lie his way out of it. "How long?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He hesitated, then sighed, rubbing his face with his hand. "A few months," he admitted, his voice barely audible. "I didn't want to hurt you." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. A few months. He had been lying to me, betraying me for months, while I had trusted him with everything. I wanted to scream, to cry, but I couldn't. I had to stay composed. "You don't get to say that," I said, my voice cold now. "You don't get to tell me it's not what I think when you've been hiding this from me for so long. This is my life you've been playing with, and you've been lying to me the whole time." His face fell, and I could see the weight of his guilt crushing him. But it was too late. There was no going back now. The foundation of everything I had known was shattered, and I wasn't sure if I could ever rebuild it. The betrayal cut deeper than I could have ever imagined, but I knew one thing for sure. I was done being deceived. It was time to make a choice, and I wasn't sure what that choice would be just yet, but I knew it was a turning point in my life. The days after the confrontation felt like a blur. My mind kept replaying the conversation, his words echoing in my ears. A few months, he had admitted. A few months of betrayal, a few months of secrets, a few months of my life slipping away without me even knowing. It was a pain that was hard to describe, a mixture of anger, heartbreak, and disbelief. I spent the next few days in a fog, trying to process everything, trying to figure out what I was supposed to do next. My best friend had been right. He had been lying to me all along. But I wasn't ready to give up yet. I wasn't sure if I could ever forgive him, but I had to figure out what my next steps would be. I didn't know if I could keep living this lie, but I wasn't sure I could walk away from everything I had built with him. My phone buzzed, interrupting my thoughts. It was a message from my best friend. Asterisk, I'm so sorry for everything. I never meant to hurt you. Asterisk, I stared at the message, unsure of how to respond. Could I ever forgive her? Could I even trust her again? She had been a part of all of this, and yet I had to admit that I was just as angry with myself for not seeing the signs. I walked around the house, each room reminding me of the life I had built, of the trust one had given him. I needed time. I needed space to think. I couldn't just make a decision in the heat of the moment. I had to think about what was best for me, and I had to make sure that I didn't let my emotions control me. I decided to take a step back. I needed some time away from him, some time to clear my head. I wasn't sure if I could rebuild the trust in my marriage, but I knew that I couldn't keep living in this uncertainty. The truth had come out, but now it was time to figure out what to do with it. I couldn't change the past, but I could control my future. I took a deep breath and made the decision to leave for a while, to give myself the space I needed. I packed a bag and left the house, unsure of where I would go, but knowing that I needed to find a place where I could think and decide what came next. The pain of the betrayal was still there, but I knew that I needed to take control of my life again. As I left, I didn't know what the future would hold, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was finally making a decision for myself. The time away from my husband gave me the space I needed, but the pain of the betrayal didn't fade as quickly as I hoped. I stayed with a close friend who was understanding and supportive, but no amount of comfort could erase the hurt I felt. Each day, I wrestled with the decision of whether to go back to my marriage or move on for good. The truth was, I still loved him, but the lies had torn us apart. Every conversation we had before this, every promise he made, now seemed hollow. I tried to focus on the present, on rebuilding myself, but I kept hearing his voice in my head, telling me everything would be fine. The more I thought about it, the more I realized how much I had been blinded by my trust in him. But I didn't want to let this define me. I couldn't let this betrayal control my future. I was stronger than this, and I would find my way, even if it meant walking away from the man I had shared my life with. After days of deep reflection, I made the decision to meet with him, to finally face the reality of our relationship and figure out what to do next. I wasn't going to run away anymore. I was ready to confront him. When we met, the tension in the room was palpable. Neither of us knew where to start. He looked at me, his eyes full of regret, but I wasn't sure if that was enough. I needed to hear him say more than just words. He needed to show me that he truly understood the damage he had caused. I'm sorry, he said, his voice shaking. I never wanted to hurt you. I was selfish, and I betrayed your trust. His words stung, but they weren't enough. I needed him to acknowledge the full extent of what he had done. Sorry isn't enough anymore, I said, my voice steady, but the pain was still raw inside. You've broken something between us that can't be fixed with an apology. I don't know if I can ever trust you again. He looked down, ashamed, and for a moment, I thought he might cry. But I didn't feel sorry for him. This was my time to heal, to find my own strength. I don't know what the future holds, I said, the words feeling heavy. But I can't keep living like this. I need to figure out what's best for me, and right now, that means moving forward without you. He nodded, tears in his eyes, but he didn't try to stop me. I could see the finality in his expression. This was the end. As I walked away from him, a sense of clarity washed over me. I wasn't sure where this journey would take me, but I knew I was finally taking control of my life. The pain was still there, but it wasn't all-consuming anymore. I had made my decision, and that was the first step toward healing. It had been a week since the confrontation, and each day felt like a small victory, yet the weight of the past still loomed over me. I was slowly adjusting to my new reality, no longer part of a marriage that had been built on deceit, no longer trying to make sense of the lies that had torn us apart. I woke up every morning with a sense of clarity that I hadn't felt in a long time. It wasn't easy. There were still moments when I would catch myself thinking about him, about what could have been. But then I reminded myself of why I had left, why I had made the choice to walk away. I was rebuilding my life, and it was going to take time. I spent the next few days reflecting on everything that had happened, trying to make peace with the truth. I kept replaying the conversation with my best friend in my mind, wondering how I could have been so blind, how I hadn't seen the signs that were right in front of me. But then, as I sat in the quiet of my apartment, I realized that blaming myself wasn't going to help me heal. I had trusted the people I loved, and they had broken that trust. That was on them, not me. It was a hard truth to accept, but it was also a necessary one. I wasn't perfect, but I deserved better than the betrayal I had experienced. I didn't need to carry the burden of guilt for their actions. Slowly, I started to take back control of my life. I started to spend more time with friends who supported me, people who truly cared about my happiness. I enrolled in a class I had always wanted to take, something just for me. And little by little, the emptiness that had consumed me began to fade. But then, one day, he showed up at my door. I wasn't expecting him, and the moment I saw him standing there, I froze. My heart raced, and for a split second, I thought about letting him in, letting him explain himself. But then I remembered why I had made my decision. I had to protect myself. I had to stay strong. "We need to talk," he said, his voice pleading. But I wasn't sure there was anything left to say. "No," I replied, my voice steady, though my heart was pounding in my chest. "I don't think there's anything left to talk about." His face fell, and for a moment, I saw the man I had once loved, the man I thought I knew. But that man was gone. The person standing in front of me was a stranger, someone who had betrayed me, someone who had broken my heart. "Please," he said softly, taking a step toward me. But I didn't move. I didn't want to. "You had your chance," I said firmly, locking eyes with him. "I can't keep letting you in. I can't keep living in this cycle of pain and betrayal." He looked down, his shoulders slumping in defeat. There was a long pause before he spoke again. "I'm sorry," he whispered. I shook my head, holding back the tears that threatened to come. "Sorry doesn't fix this. It doesn't change what you did." I turned away from him, walking back inside my apartment, closing the door behind me. It felt like I was closing a chapter of my life that I had been trying to escape from for months. The door clicked shut, and as I leaned against it, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. This was the moment I had been waiting for, the moment I finally took control of my own happiness. I had made the right choice. I was finally free. It had been days since I had shut the door on him, but the weight of the decision still lingered in the back of my mind. I wasn't sure if I had made the right choice, but I was finally starting to feel like I could breathe again. My life was no longer being defined by the lies and betrayal. Each day felt like a small victory, a step closer to the life I had always wanted. I spent my days doing the things that made me happy, spending time with friends, focusing on my career, and rediscovering who I was without the shadow of my past hanging over me. But despite all the progress, there was still one question I couldn't shake. Was I really ready to move on? The truth was, I wasn't sure. I still missed him. I still missed the man I thought I knew, the man who had made promises I believed in. But as the days passed, I realized something important. I wasn't missing him. I was missing the idea of him. The person I had fallen in love with didn't exist anymore. And that was the hardest part to accept. I had to let go of the dream of a perfect marriage and face the reality of the situation. I couldn't keep holding on to something that was never going to be. One night, as I was sorting through some old photographs, I found a picture of us from the early days of our marriage. We looked so happy, so full of hope. A pang of sadness hit me as I stared at the picture, but I didn't feel anger anymore. I felt peace. I had been through a lot, and while the scars would never fully heal, I had come out stronger. The next morning, I woke up with a renewed sense of clarity. I didn't need to be trapped by my past any longer. It was time to look forward, to embrace the future and all the possibilities it held. I wasn't going to let fear or doubt hold me back anymore. I made a decision that day. I was going to move forward, not because I had to, but because I deserved to. I deserved a life filled with happiness, trust, and love on my terms. The journey wasn't going to be easy, but I knew that with every step, I was getting closer to the person I was meant to be. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was finally in control of my own life. It wasn't about forgetting the past. It was about learning from it and using those lessons to create a better future. I didn't know what was coming next, but I was ready to face it. I was ready to embrace the life that was waiting for me. The months that followed were a whirlwind of growth and change. Each day, I felt more like myself again, shedding the remnants of the past like old skin. I focused on my work, on my friendships, and on rediscovering the woman I had been before everything fell apart. There were still moments of doubt, times when I questioned whether I had done the right thing, but those moments became fewer and farther between. The decision to move forward was no longer just a decision. It was a reality I embraced every single day. I met new people, experienced new things, and slowly, the pain of the past faded into the background. One evening, as I sat with friends at a local cafe, laughing and sharing stories, I realized how much my life had changed. The woman I had been, a woman defined by her marriage, by her trust in others, was no more. She had been replaced by someone stronger, more independent. I had come to terms with the fact that my marriage was over, and while the divorce was still in process, I had stopped waiting for closure. I had found my own peace. It wasn't about him anymore, or the life we had tried to build together. It was about me, and the future I was creating for myself. I had learned the hard way that I couldn't control other people's actions, but I could control how I responded. And I had chosen to respond with strength. One evening, as I was out for a walk, I bumped into someone new, someone who sparked a connection I hadn't felt in a long time. We talked for hours, sharing our stories and experiences, and by the end of the night, I realized that I wasn't just open to the idea of love again. I was ready for it. I wasn't looking for someone to fix me or fill the emptiness I had once felt. I was looking for someone to stand by me, to share in the life I had built for myself. The next few months brought new experiences, new lessons, and new opportunities. The past still lingered in the corners of my mind, but it no longer held any power over me. I had stepped into my own future, no longer defined by anyone else's actions or decisions. I had learned to forgive, not for them, but for myself. And as the days passed, I grew more and more certain that I had made the right choice. I was no longer the woman who had been betrayed. I was someone new, someone stronger, someone who had taken control of her life. And that was enough.